Welcome to today's Global Connections program. I'm Bill Miller. What are the 16 United Nations peacekeeping missions? Why are these peacekeeping missions important to promote peace and stability? We'll be back in just a moment to talk about these and other important issues. Welcome back to our program. Today we're shining the spotlight on United Nations peacekeeping and why these 16 UN peacekeeping missions are really very important, not only to the people within the areas, but also to people really around the world. My guest today is an expert on United Nations peacekeeping. My guest today is Ms. Ameerah Haq. Ms. Ameerah Haq in 2012 was appointed as United Nations Undersecretary General for the Department of Field Support, thus becoming the highest ranking Bangladeshi official at the United Nations. Ms. Ameerah Haq, welcome to today's Global Connections program.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being with me today. Let's jump right into it. You're the head of the Department of Field Services. What exactly, very briefly, does the Department of Field Services do as far as really assisting in United Nations peacekeeping operations?
The Department of Field Support is the department that puts the implementation of the mission mandate into effect. So when the Security Council authorizes a mission and the number of troops and the mandate of the mission is determined through the Security Council resolution, that mission then needs to be installed in the country. So it means personnel, it means a budget, it means logistics, it means getting the troops there, it means getting the equipment that the troops need, it means setting up ICT communications. So all what makes the engine run is what the Department of Field Support does, but in four primary areas. One is finance and budget. One is the human resources and all the personnel, which includes all the troops. The third is the communications and technology structure. And the fourth is the logistics, which is the troops need the rations, the fuel contracts, all the contracting and everything that goes into it. So that, in a nutshell, is what we do. So the mission has to work, its engines have to be moving, and that's the role of the Department of Field Support.
That's a huge logistical challenge, I'm sure. How many peacekeepers roughly are there today?
Well, there are, as of today, there are 104,000 personnel in these 16 peacekeeping operations. 90,000 of those are military, so they are troops, boots on the ground. 12,500 are police, because the mandate also calls for policing responsibilities. 1,700 of them are military observers who are in the different locations, who are getting the information on what is happening on the ground, and then 17,000 civilian personnel. So that's the makeup of the in terms of the personnel component of the missions that are in operation today.
And years ago, it used to be that all the peacekeepers were men, but that has changed. Now you have not only the blue helmets with the males, but you have blue helmets with women. How important is it for women peacekeepers? I think Liberia was the first mission that had women peacekeepers. How important is it to have women in a situation like that to provide assistance to women who perhaps are being ravaged by war or what's the offshoot of war?
I think it's vitally important, and I think the Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security highlighted why it is important for women not only to be part of the peace negotiations, but also to be involved in the aftermath of peace building and institution building, and likewise for the UN to have sufficient female staff in the cadres, in all cadres, whether it's military, police or civilian. This year we appointed the first female force commander of a United Nations peacekeeping mission in Cyprus. But you know, I worked in East Timor for 3 years, and there, you know, I could see firsthand how important it was to have female police officers. So you rightly said, in Liberia we had the first all-female police contingent. Likewise, in Haiti we also have an all-female police contingent. You know, also in the ranks of the military, it is really up to the member states to make sure that they deploy as many female officers as they can. The reason that it's important is that women are very much, you know, also part of the, as I said, the peace building process, but they very often are the victims of the violence that has been ongoing. And even in the aftermath of peace, women remain subject to violence. You know, very often men come home from you know, fighting, but you know, the adjustment and all of that takes time. Women have been very important parts of you know, fighting or being the support to the men who are fighting, so they also need to be involved in the demobilization programs. So it is very important that among the personnel that we provide, that there are sufficient women who, in a way, the women in these countries feel more comfortable relating to. And that goes back to what I was saying in East Timor, that I found that the female police officers that we had were able to reach out to women who were victims of domestic violence. And I felt that that made a great impact on the ability of people to come out. And when we did community policing, the role of women police who were going to the communities was very important for the outreach, confidence building, just feeling comfortable in you know, stating what their problems were and finding some recourse to that.
And they can build that natural dialogue with females who are having those problems.
Yes,
very important.
absolutely.
Now, the UN Security Council has to approve all the peacekeeping missions. The UN does not have a standing army. A lot of people believe it does, but it does not. You really get troops that are on loan from various countries. We can't go through the whole list, but roughly how many countries contribute troops to peacekeeping missions, just more or less?
Right now there are about 67, around 67
countries.
Countries that are actually contributing troops. We have, you know, many countries that are contributing, you know, military observers and others, but in terms of the you know, contingents. And yes, so we do need to, as soon as a mission is established, there is a call that goes out to the entire United Nations system and to all the countries. And countries come forward with saying, yes, they would be able to provide troops on the ground. Some countries are you know, perhaps respond better to providing enablers. Enablers are engineering units, medical units, signal companies, transportation companies. So they don't provide the troops, but they provide those who enable the troops to do their jobs. In Mali now, for instance, we have the Dutch who are there helping us to bring together better the information that we get from, you know, from different parts of the mission, to help analyze that mission and to have a better situational awareness of the conditions within which we're operating. So so yes, as I said, the response is many. In addition to those troops on the ground, there are other kinds of deployments that take place that help put the entire mission together and help implement the mandate.
Exactly. As you were talking, I was thinking of a couple of studies that were done years ago, a few years ago, not too many, with the U.S. Government Accountability Office and the RAND Corporation. They came up with that when the UN peacekeepers can do the job, that it's 8 times cheaper to use the UN peacekeepers as opposed to maybe the United States military or one of the others, for obvious reasons. And in some cases, many cases, the UN peacekeepers are more effective than other militaries because they can be impartial. They can be invited in. They can not take sides in it. So it's very important. Now, periodically, there are problems. I'm sure you always have problems in any group.
Sure.
And every military in the world has problems with some military people who don't follow the military code of honor or whatever, or maybe violate the laws. What do you do when you have folks who are, say, on loan from country X that do something that violates someone's human rights or breaks the laws? How does your zero tolerance policy work as far as what you do to deal with that particular person or persons?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the UN has, there are different elements of it, and you spoke about human rights, and then also there's, general misconduct, and then there are violations of human rights as well. So there are, different policies that are in place to safeguard the populations and the civilians in the countries where we operate, but also conduct within the mission structure itself. So the Secretary General has a zero tolerance policy, as you said, for any kind of sexual exploitation and abuse. As I said, this could be towards the general population, and there have been reports of the misconduct, and there has been misconduct among the troops. What we do is, as soon as we learn about any of this misconduct, we immediately institute an investigation, and we have staff members who are trained in the investigation. And if it is deemed and the investigation bears out what the accusation is, we immediately inform the country in question and tell them that this has happened. In some instances, the alleged offender is also repatriated by the country, and we ask the country then to institute their own national procedures in meting out justice for the level of crime that has been committed, and we ask the countries to report back to us on what steps have been taken. So that is with respect to the misconduct of troops on the ground. With our own civilian staff, we have an internal administration of justice procedure, and those measures kick in. And again, if it is deemed to have been, borne out, then there are measures in place which can, result from reprimand, depending on what the case is, to outright dismissal of the person. In terms of human rights, there is a human rights due diligence policy, and that allows us to vet what may have been violations of human rights in the past, and we don't want people with those backgrounds to be coming under the UN flag into another theater, into another country. And there again, the member states who are providing the troops to us undertake and sign a statement saying that the troops that they are sending have not been are not the subject of any kind of investigation, or have not in the past have anything in their careers or in their track records related to human rights violations. And again, as always, there are instances where that does happen. If those come to our attention, then we look at investigating this further. But in order to prevent all of this, and I think part of it is in the mitigation and prevention of this, we really put a lot of emphasis on the pre-deployment training of the troops before they come. And so there is, one is the regular sort of, tactical training and everything else they need. But in addition, the UN insists, and we prepare the modules, and we make sure that all the troop contributing countries adhere to those modules of gender sensitivity, human rights, protection of civilians, all of these things which, they must be trained on prior to being certified to come into as part of a UN peacekeeping mission to a country. And I think that is bearing fruit in terms of, we see an overall reduction in the number of cases. But the point with, particularly when you look at sexual exploitation and abuse, one case is one case too many. And one case, it makes the headlines, and so although we as I said, we are putting a lot of emphasis on training, sensitization. Even when they come to the theater, there are continuous training sessions and sensitization and awareness that takes place. So measures are in place, but have we reached a a stage where all these areas are totally sort of misconduct free? Absolutely not.
Well, you're watching Global Connections Television, which is an independently produced program. The opinions expressed on Global Connections are solely those of the moderator and his guest. Today, we're taking a look at some of the 16 United Nations peacekeeping missions and the peacekeeping concept in general. My guest today is an expert on peacekeeping. My guest today is Ms. Ameerah Haq. Ms. Ameerah Haq, who in 2012 was appointed as United Nations Undersecretary General for the Department of Field Support in peacekeeping. Ms. Ameerah Haq, we're talking about peacekeeping, and this is a major logistical challenge that you have, obviously, because so often these peacekeepers, they go into areas, there are no roads, there's no communication. They are responsible, in some cases, for policing an area half the size of the United States with maybe 19,000 peacekeepers, which is huge. It's just an absolutely phenomenal challenge, I would imagine. Are there some high-tech pieces of equipment that you're using today? I know you rely on the donor countries. The UN is not flush with money, but you rely on them to provide helicopters, jeeps, things like that. But are there pieces of high-tech equipment that you're using today to improve the peacekeepers' ability to bring peace and stability to a very dangerous area?
Certainly, and I'm glad you mentioned the issue of resources, because the 16 peacekeeping missions that we have today have a total budget of $8.4 billion, and that is 50% of 1% of the total global expenditure on military. So it just goes to show you that with 0.5% of 1% of global expendier in military, we are running 16 peacekeeping missions. Now, yes, the answer to the question of do we want to are we using technology? Yes. Do we want to use better and more modern technology? Obviously, we do. Our peacekeepers find themselves in areas and regions and theaters that are hostile, in hostile environments. They're facing threats as they have never faced threats before. And the UN itself, where once the blue flag itself was protection, now that blue flag itself is the target of attack. So we need to have better means of protecting our forces, of protecting our personnel who are there. In that context, for example, we have started a year ago the use of the unmanned aerial systems, which was new to the UN. But as it gives us good situational awareness, particularly, as you said, when we're operating in remote regions and vast regions. We have used this most recently and started using them in the Democratic Republic of Congo. We are now using them in Mali as well. There are other areas of technology that we also want to use. We want to have better systems of communication, tracking, for example, in our vehicles, anti-IED devices, where in Mali and others, many of our troops are subject to attack of IED devices. Anti-mine equipment to sweep the areas before the convoys go. As you said, the logistic challenges are many. In Mali, in the north, we are in remote regions. So in order to protect our camps, but to see who is approaching our camps now, for example, we are launching this new technology, which is the balloons that go up with a camera, and they take a quick look at sort of who is or if anyone is approaching the camps. We're looking at better kinds of information, as I said, GPS tracking of our vehicles when they go out on patrols. But over and above that is also, regular technology that, we can look at and help be more environmentally conscious, like solar panels, like better, sewage and waste disposal systems, wind technology, trying to look at better ways of drilling for water. And we're very conscious when we do those things that we involve the communities, in the areas where we're locating our, either whether it's our regional headquarters or temporary operating bases or forward operating bases. We depend largely on the cooperation with the community, and I think we need to be, seen as part of helping them. So in Mali, for instance, a number of the water points where we have dug, the villages are also benefiting from those water points. So there are many areas of technology, as I said, better mapping, better communications, better even the aircraft that we use, having more modern technology within those aircraft. So all of that. We have convened, the head of DPKO, Hervé Ladsus, and myself have convened a panel that is making recommendations to us on how we can be smarter about peacekeeping through the use of technology and innovation. And we look forward to receiving those recommendations and seeing how much we can implement. And of course, a lot depends, as you said, on the generosity of the financial contributors in terms of, number one, making the technology available to us. For example, most recently in building camps, we have traditionally used the prefabricated housing. But very recently, when the Dutch contingent went to Mali, we saw that they had a very good system of expeditionary type tents, which you're able to build very quickly and install very, very quickly. So these are the kinds of things that we're learning. They are wide, so they have good insulation for those conditions of tremendous heat in the desert. So we're constantly learning, and I think we just need to keep up with the technology.
Flexibility is very important. Technology is very important, especially when the rules of engagement change so quickly as they have over the past 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and it's very, very important. Well, now, May 29th is the International Day of the United Nations Peacekeepers. What is the significance of that day to focus attention on peacekeepers?
Well, through just this year alone, we have lost 104 peacekeepers, and peacekeeping, I think, is it's a united effort. It's the world, the United Nations through the Security Council, the combination of countries that contribute troops, countries that contribute finances, countries that bring better technology, the Secretariat, everyone comes together, and very often regional, neighboring, regional organizations, everyone. But to come together to try and influence a particular mandate that will bring lasting peace to a country. And very often in the process of attempting to achieve that lasting peace, we lose peacekeepers. And I think the reflection on May 29th, on the International Day of Peacekeepers, is to I think uphold the principles of United Nations peacekeeping. You mentioned earlier the neutrality. To uphold those principles, but also I think to pay respect and honor the memory of those who have paid the ultimate price for the cause of peace.
Exactly. And this is what we have to remember, that these peacekeepers are in very dangerous, generally speaking, in very dangerous areas of the world. They're not well-paved highways. You don't have all the communication systems that are out there. They're covering large areas of land. It's a very tremendous logistical challenge, as you've gone through today, to get the supplies to these folks. But the problems they're dealing with in these some very violent areas, such as Democratic Republic of Congo or South Sudan or wherever it might be, Darfur, that these problems are not only problematic for the people in that area, but they can resonate throughout the region and in other parts of the world. And so it's extremely important that we learn more about United Nations peacekeeping and how they do play a vital role in bringing peace and stability in a very difficult situation in many, many cases. And of course, our viewers can go to UN.org and get much more information about this, but it's a very, very important program, and it's one that we don't hear much about except when there's a tragedy or something like that, people get killed, which is horrible. We should hear about it, but still we need to look at the whole picture, the macro picture of United Nations peacekeeping, to get that really a basic overview. But Ms. Ameerah Haq, I want to thank you so very much for bringing us up to date on United Nations peacekeeping and what you're doing in the Department of Field Support with peacekeeping. And I want to thank you so very much for a very interesting and a very informative program.
Thank you very much. I was very pleased to be here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Thank you.
I'm Bill Miller. Thanks for joining us on today's Global Connections program.